Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Open Mic Gripe with Jay Rice and Jeffrey Ide, the place where serious and silly complaints come to chat.
Open Mic Gripe is a weekly podcast dedicated to hearing your gripes, grievances, and opinions on any and all topics.
Every episode, Jay and I will have an opportunity to get to the bottom of the issues which are lingering on the back of your mind, and engage in order to create constructive conversation using a combination of lighthearted comedy and well-formed logic.
If you feel like we are wrong, inappropriate, or biased, and let's be honest, you probably will, then call in, email, or tweet and let your voice be heard. You can email us at openmicgripe@gmail.com or tweet to us at openmicgripe. And you can also find us on Facebook if you search for Open Mic Gripe.
So jump on in and gripe on the Open Mic with Jay Rice and Jeffrey Ide.
Okay, so am I right or wrong that the American currency of money is based on gold?
No, not since the 70s.
No.
Okay, I think somebody had mentioned that. So what is the American currency? It's based on the world economy right now?
It's based on the full faith and trust of the United States government.
Oh, shit.
But more trust, not faith. It's backed up by, if I don't botch this up completely, it's backed up by the fact that there are other people with prior written agreements that are there to back you up. So, for example, when you are spending too much in a country like Greece, and you don't have a system of mutual trust where you know people will come in and take care of you in the case of an emergency, then people wouldn't trust that system.
So
we have to trust China because they own most of our...
In a manner of speaking.
Well, we have to trust the Federal Reserve Bank,
Okay.
which is currently printing out money in massive quantities, which devalues it.
Mm-hmm.
We can't be assured that the value of a dollar is going to be the same a year from now as it is now. Because the Federal Reserve, anytime they feel like it, can print out a few trillion
But
more.
you don't have to be sure. You can be...
Well, you can be sure
when
that
you're
they're
talking
going
about
to do
an
it.
institutionalized currency as large and as well circulated as the American dollar, you don't have to be sure. You can go to bed tonight and not worry about your dollar being valueless next week.
Well, the value of the dollar, since we've gone off the gold, the gold standard has lost 97% of its value. So,
but in our bond episode, we talked about what would happen if Goldfinger made all of the gold unusable in Fort Knox, and then we'd have to be off the gold standard anyway. So we averted that calamity.
well, I mean, if we're going to go
Thanks,
into the James
Pussy
Bond
Galore.
scenarios,
Huh?
no, and the price of gold is manipulated as well. And the value, gold can be mined, can be added to, and potentially we have the ability to gain a great quantity of gold and other precious minerals from asteroids and such that could offset the...
So I'm just rewatching Heroes, and there's a guy on there that can turn every metal into gold. So I mean, yeah, there's all kinds of ways.
I mean, yeah, there's always alcohol, but...
So I guess the reason why I bring this up, though, is because it sounds like Bitcoin is actually based basically on the same thing, that the trust in people buying into it that Bitcoin has value. Is that... Or is it based on something else?
There are people that claim that Bitcoin, mainly in the gold bug world, that claim that Bitcoin doesn't have what they call intrinsic value, in that it's a physical object that's useful for things. Well, that really isn't the case for gold's value either.
Right, like
Gold
I can take a sock full of quarters and hit you with it. It has value if I need to protect myself. I can't do that with Bitcoins.
There are a number of
DiKoins.
I could hit you with my DiKoins, though. That's true.
And there are some definitely very good use cases for industrial use of gold. It's a useful thing, but not nearly enough to hold up its value. Whereas I think with Bitcoin, the the utility of the Bitcoin network, the value of the blockchain, I think will support its value.
Can you, you mentioned a couple times the blockchain. Can you explain a little bit more what that means?
Well, what happens is that each transaction, once they're confirmed by miners, will eventually be put into a
Underage
block.
people.
Yes.
Yes, miners. They will eventually be put
It took
into
you
a
that
block.
long to come up with that joke?
It took me that long to determine if it was worth it.
Well,
Was it just
that way you wasted a lot of thought in being wrong about that.
It's good to know he's thinking about the important issues.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
But every so often, a miner will solve a math problem that essentially allows them to publish a block to the network, and it will include all of these transactions that they've processed. And
It's like, I feel right now he's just like, what a bunch of idiots.
Well, no.
I felt like that's what that was about. It's just like, I have to talk to these simpletons.
He's clearly very passionate about it, but I've never heard someone speak with less excitement about anything. If every ringleader at the circus would be like,
Check out this lion.
yeah, get some clowns for you.
There's a slight exhaustion that I find it, even as many times as I've explained it, I find it difficult to be able to convey a really good impression of what it actually is, because I have nothing to relate it to that people should have normally encounter in life.
Right.
Let me ask you this then, because here's the point: is at some level, as we keep talking about it, we're getting to be more and more monotonous.
Okay.
It's
What?
full of detail. It's
Well, it
full
is.
of very pedantic detail, which is actually its strength, from what I'm hearing. But for most people, and a grand majority of people in this country, much less the world, do not even think about Bitcoin on a day-to-day level. Can you summarize this in a movie trailer style pitch?
Like, this would be my
a movie
area.
trailer stuff. Well,
In a world with... I mean, how can you summarize this to get people to pique their interest, to get people excited, and to get them to actually read about it and take a look at it?
well, I don't know. I'm not an expert at marketing, but for most people, I think the incentive is going to be that it's something they can use without the hassle of signing up and attaching their information and filling out forms. And for a lot of the world, they really don't have the option. A lot of the world can't get bank accounts, don't have access to financial institutions that allow them to transfer money globally. Here in America, when we want to open a bank, get a PayPal account, do business, there's a lot of forms, there's reporting, there's hoops to jump through in order to get it. So there's a barrier to entry for people that Bitcoin doesn't have. And then there's the incentive of saving money on your transfers, which can be enormous, both for individuals and for businesses. I recently purchased products I intend to sell on my website from a company in Europe, and I'm saving 10% off the cost because I don't have to pay the cost of doing a wire transfer to Europe. And that's enormous. That's 10% more to my profit margin. So things like that, things like remittance. I stood in line behind someone at the Chinese grocery store on Main here who paid more to transfer money to Africa than the value of the money they were transferring.
That's, when I was thinking about this episode today, I did have I have talked to you before once about Bitcoin, and there was a few things you were saying about it that made sense to me. And one thing when I was thinking about today's episode was the idea of a gift tax. Like, in terms of, if you are going to transfer a large amount of money from one person to another, even if you're just gifting it, like if my parents want to give me money, it costs them money unless they are literally doing it with a stack of cash.
Yeah.
And even if they give me a stack of cash, even then, if I put that into a bank, I need to account for that, and then it can still cost somebody money. Because I have to basically, I don't get that. Why, if somebody wants to give me money, why it has to cost them or myself money, where I have to pay money on that to transfer that. That's where I get the idea of Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, I've having run a business as well, I understand the frustration of this when I needed to send money from one branch of a bank to, well, you know, if you're not sending it to the same exact bank, if you're sending it to a different bank, you've got to put a wire transfer in. We're talking about an era where we can instantly transfer money electronically. We do it all the time with our card. We transfer money from our bank account to theirs for the cost of swiping a card.
Yeah, it costs me $3.
And somehow you have to spend $20 to transfer money from one bank account to the next. Because as far as I'm aware, they actually need to pay for the background checks to ensure that the money is there and it's going to the right place. I don't know.
Well, even owning a bank account, I have to transfer money from one part of my bank account to another part of my bank account.
And they charge you for that?
No, but to keep the two parts of my bank account open, I have to do that. I have to once a month transfer a certain amount of money to keep the other account open.
So does this currency pose a threat to banks?
If they're not paying attention to it, it definitely does. I think that there's certain business models that are going to be completely replaced. Like Western Union MoneyGram, I see no reason for them to continue to exist once people realize how to use Bitcoin. Their model is completely obsoleted in every way. Banks still have a place. If they adopt Bitcoin, they can use Bitcoin to make their own infrastructure much better, much more efficient. There are still places for credit card companies because a lot of their business is people who want to spend money they don't have. Bitcoin doesn't allow people to do that. It could potentially be done in Bitcoin once the price of Bitcoin reaches some sort of a plateau where they can count on it having a reasonable stability. People could give loans in Bitcoin.
And based on that stability, if somebody wanted to borrow money, where does the oversight come from? Where is the central government or the liability of an individual person to pay back that money?
Not getting their legs broken.
But that's what I'm asking.
It's the same as dollars. If I borrow you $100, where does that come from? Where's that central authority? So
if I right, well, in that case, you have the American legal system. If we had a legal contract for $100, you could use that to show that I hadn't paid the $100 back. And
you could just as easily use a legal contract for a Bitcoin transaction as you could for dollars or a purchase of a good or service or anything. It's just another thing of value you can trade.
I get that. Would the court? I get that, but I think a good question is: would the court recognize that? Would the court recognize?
I think they already have.
Okay.
Because people have, in the Silk Road case, I think that is established as precedent that this is something. This is basically a currency. They've charged people with laundering money or laundering bitcoins. They've charged people with stealing bitcoins. The IRS has tracked the DEA agent theft of bitcoins through the.
But at some point, there's going to be, with any business, there's always going to be a few bad apples. And there's got to be, at some point, a predatory loan practice that would take advantage of Bitcoin.
Oh, I've already been in my head trying to figure out how I can do this.
Well, where does the oversight come in? And would the federal government ever be allowed to regulate this kind of market?
Well, as far as the say offering predatory loans, that you want to be a loan shark, cash is much better for the same reason it's much better for money laundering. You don't have the trail of transactions that lead back to you. I don't think that I don't think Bitcoin is a good candidate for that thing at all, for that type of thing at all.
That makes sense because, let's say if they discover all these addresses of people with their legs broken, and then you're the one who kept sending the money to these people with all the broken legs, yeah, that looks kind of bad on you.
But predatory loan practices aren't just mob-style tactics. They're intentionally loaning money to people with contractual fees that constantly keep these people in debt and keep the need for debt continuous.
Oh yeah, that's the kind
I
that I
don't
want to
see
do.
how that could be done any worse with Bitcoin than with the money we already
Just
have.
because it's not done any worse doesn't mean it could be done.
Well, sure, it could be done. It could be done with anything. Bitcoin doesn't make that problem any better or worse necessarily, though it would make it more transparent.
But
So-
when you have loan sharks or any type of predatory loaning system in the United States, that can be overseen by the federal government. That
Okay.
can be monitored.
Let's say somebody doesn't want their image of their DiKoin out. Then they could pay me fees to make sure that doesn't go out. You guys, I think this is a better idea. And the more that I think about it,
Blackmail. Okay.
What I want to know is, can I take a Bitcoin shower? Just go to...
don't make this weird. Sorry, Eric, what were you gonna say?
throwing
I
Bitcoins.
guess I don't see how Bitcoin would be any better of a candidate for this than regular money.
No,
and
But
currency or
it's not
anything
about
else.
better for loan sharks. What I'm suggesting is that with any U.S. dollar practice, the federal government can regulate it. Would Bitcoin ever allow that kind of regulation?
Well, Bitcoin doesn't allow or disallow people to do things outside of Bitcoin. The Bitcoin protocol allows you to exchange Bitcoins. It doesn't tell you how you can treat other human beings. If if your government says that it's illegal for you to buy a substance and you buy a substance with dollars or you buy a substance with Bitcoin, Bitcoin doesn't care any more than cash cares. The government can pass any type of law it likes. If their law happens to contradict how Bitcoin works, Bitcoin isn't going to change itself to fit that law because it can't read laws and it doesn't care.
So what if the federal government decides to shut down Bitcoin or make the exchange of Bitcoin within the United States illegal?
Well, they can make the exchange of Bitcoin within the United States illegal, and I think that would be about as effective as making pot illegal was, and making BitTorrent illegal was. People are going to do it anyway.
Would make a lot of people very sad.
It probably would make a lot of people very sad, but the effect on the Bitcoin network, honestly, I don't think would make that much of a difference. It would slow it down, but most of the real potential for quick adoption, I think, is in parts of the world that have unstable currencies, where a large percentage of the population is unbanked. I think that the U.S. is going to be one of the slower adopters because we already have so much financial regulation in the way of letting startup businesses get into the Bitcoin industry. The hurdles to opening a business that does financial transactions in the United States is many millions of dollars and enormous amounts of paperwork. And there's only a few companies that have legal Bitcoin exchanging in a limited number of states. Whereas in many other countries, anybody that wants to do this can do this. And I think the U.S. is going to miss out on a lot of that startup business. A lot of the innovation is going to happen in other places. So I think that any step to further regulate Bitcoin use in the U.S. is mainly going to hurt the U.S. and not Bitcoin.
Interesting. So let's say that I'm sold. I want to start up a Bitcoin account. What does it take to do that?
Well, if you want to hold some Bitcoin, it can be as simple as just purchasing Bitcoin from someone else that has one. For instance, I could sell you $10 worth of Bitcoin and show you how to download an app and put it on your phone. If you wanted to do something more complicated or get a larger amount, you could open an account with any number of companies that offer to sell or exchange Bitcoins on a market, and you could have a PayPal-like account where that company holds your coins for you. Of course, then you have to trust that company,
Right.
which defeats a little bit of the point of Bitcoin in that you have personal ownership. If you wanted to safely hold Bitcoins and not trust anyone else, you can actually download the Bitcoin program, create your own wallet, or even make a wallet on paper that doesn't touch the internet, and save your Bitcoins on that, put it in a safe or some sort of safe place somewhere.
Interesting. So all right. But I find it interesting that still that to get into Bitcoin, it still is like I have to exchange money, cash money, or for that.
Well, that's how you get any kind of money. If you want to get dollars, you exchange goods or services that you have to someone who has those dollars. You get a job, or you trade something of value to someone else. It's just like any other currency.
That's true. But the paper thing, how? So I can create a paper wallet. Basically, is that like a code or the
Yeah.
address, and then I can put that in my safe, and then that has so many Bitcoin on it. I guess I don't quite understand that.
Well, what you're doing.
It's one of those drawers.
It's one of those
It's the
drawers.
key to one of
And
those
What you
drawers.
do is you can randomly generate that key. And there's computer programs to do it, and if you don't trust those computer programs, you can actually, there's people have posted numerous methods. You could roll dice to randomly generate all of the digits in that private key. And then what you do is you can create, based on that key, an address that you can give to other people, or that you can use yourself to send Bitcoins to that key. And you can have that exist solely on a piece of paper if you choose to.
And is there a certain amount of addresses, or does the amount of addresses can change? Like there's only a certain amount of Bitcoin. Does the amount of addresses, is that infinite, or?
It's not infinite. It's as I said earlier, larger than the number of atoms in the Earth. So it's
Gotcha.
essentially infinite. It's so large that no one's ever going to accidentally get the same one.
So what do you say to the critics who would suggest, and I'm currently taking a look through a number of them here. To quote here from Financial Times journalist Isabella Kaminska, Bitcoin is about creating asymmetry and inequality where there is none. It's a system designed to create Bitcoin millionaires.
No, I don't think it is. Bitcoin, well, of course, it's going to benefit people that bought and held a large quantity of Bitcoin earlier on, which, frankly, I don't think most of the people involved in Bitcoin early on held on to them, because I don't think most of them foresaw it having the kind of value it does. A lot of people actually just lost their keys or drives that the coins were saved on. There's all kinds of stories about that. It's unknown how many of those people still hold a large quantity. Outside of the original creator, probably not many of them.
I suppose, did a lot of people kind of like drop their Bitcoin during the Silk Road thing? Did a lot of people are like, well, get rid of my coin?
It's really hard to say. I don't know who those people are. It's possible that there's a number of people that hold a really large chunk of Bitcoin. The Winklevoss twins famously claimed to own 1% of Bitcoins at the time that they bought them. So there's the potential for that, but that's not what Bitcoin is about. I think that it's actually going to really redistribute power and wealth through its utility. That's far more important than the value of the coin. It's going to allow modern banking, the ability to instantly and cheaply transfer funds or receive funds to and from anywhere in the world to everyone on Earth.
Well, it says here that, just continuing this article, on the idea of income inequality within Bitcoin, that 60%, estimated 60% of Bitcoin accounts are dormant. Like, people are there to save and not use them.
Well, the thing is, there's no such thing as a Bitcoin account. There are...
Bitcoins. It actually just says Bitcoins.
Yeah. You can tell whether or not Bitcoins have moved or changed hands on the network, but that doesn't tell you a lot. I could take a USB drive, make a Bitcoin wallet on it, put some Bitcoin on it, and throw it in the river, and nobody ever finds or spends those coins again. They would show up as dormant on that statistic. And there are definitely a great number of early adopters of Bitcoin who simply didn't save the Bitcoins.
300 years from now, they find a treasure at the bottom of a river.
So it's interesting to look at how quickly the Bitcoins move, how many of them have been dormant for how long, and kind of speculate as to what people might be doing with those.
Well, they say here that 97% of Bitcoin users have fewer than 10 bitcoins,
Well,
and that a
there's-
handful of 78 entities are hoarding more than 10,000 bitcoins.
That's speculation. They might be right, but they don't have any way to know that. Because there are no such thing as Bitcoin accounts. If I use a different Bitcoin address for every transaction like you're supposed to, that's how Bitcoin is designed to work, then no one has any way to know how many of those addresses are mine. I could also have two Bitcoin wallets. I could have two phones and hold them next to each other and send Bitcoins back and forth between those phones all day long. And it looked like I have just an enormous amount. I've done millions of dollars in Bitcoin transactions, but I could be sending the same dollar worth back and forth a million times. So the statistics are misleading, and I would be suspicious of how people interpret those,
Right.
because I don't believe that there's anybody that has enough data to really draw a conclusion from that. And I've looked at a lot of these numbers before, and they are very interesting to look at, but ultimately you just don't know what's going on there.
So you bought. So when you started, you bought your bitcoins for 75 cents.
I bought some for 75
Some
cents.
for 75
I
cents.
also bought some for $800, so
Gotcha. And now they're worth about
they're
280.
about 280 right now, yes.
So if, like, let's say I went in and I bought, just for argument's sake, $100 worth of Bitcoin,
Yeah.
or like 100 Bitcoins. So that would be
A lot of money.
$28,000 if my math is right.
Yeah.
Now, Bitcoin keeps going and people keep buying into Bitcoin. Is it safe to say that my value of those Bitcoins is going to go up?
Well, if you think like I do, that Bitcoin will continue to survive and grow, and be an integral part of our economy, then yes, definitely it has to. The user base, the economy of Bitcoin is absolutely tiny compared to any other world market. It's just it's incredibly small. The total value at current market price of all the Bitcoins in existence, that's assuming none of them are lost, is it's a couple $1 billion. I don't remember exactly. And at its peak, when it was well over $1,000 a coin, that value I think was 11 or 12 $billion, which is just incredibly tiny compared to other markets. So yeah, if Bitcoin survives in the long term, and is used in anywhere close to the way I think it's going to be used, its price point is absurdly high compared to what it is now.
And I know you can't predict these things. These are markets we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
But how low of a value do you expect it could potentially be within a year, presuming there's no bubbles or crashes?
That's impossible to predict. I have seen the price on exchanges go
Well, you
go
did.
up, by hundreds of percent day after day, and I've watched it fall, in the one case on Gox to literally zero. Any of that is possible. It's a relatively small market with a relatively small number of players in it, and if there is somebody out there holding a large quantity of Bitcoin, they could potentially dump them all on the market and drop the price to whatever they feel like, within reason. They probably there's a lot of money sitting on those markets, and at a certain point, people would just scoop them all up cheap. But they could definitely drop the price very quickly, because how the exchanges work is there's an order book. There's a number of orders sitting out that you can buy into or sell into, and there's probably if you pick one of the larger exchanges, you could maybe sell $10 million worth of Bitcoins before all the buy orders are gone, and at that point the price is essentially zero. But it won't stay that way very long. If you look back in the charts, you notice somebody decided to dump $2 million worth of Bitcoin, and you see a huge spike in the price going straight down, but then people start buying it all back up to the old price, or to wherever there's enough buying power to put it. So you could do extreme things to the market if you have a lot of coins, and there might be somebody out there that wants to sell enough and doesn't care what they get for them to push the price down, but once they run out of coins, that's over, and it's going to continue to go back. it's a small enough market and there's enough unknowns that there's definitely a lot of potential for some serious volatility still.
Okay.
It's getting much more stable than it has been in the past, and at this point, over the last year or so, Bitcoin's been more stable than a lot of national currencies. But there definitely is the possibility for some more roller coasters in the future.
Do you want to talk about how you bought it at $800 and then it's only worth $280 now?
Well, I continued to buy it all the way up because I didn't know if it would stop or when or how far back it would go. It's impossible to predict where the peak is.
Right.
And if you're trying to speculate on the day-to-day price, and that's it's more or less what I was doing buying it on the way up there. You don't really know where it's going to stop, and you're playing a really risky game. I wouldn't advise people to trade. Nobody knows what's going to happen to that market,
Right.
and you're essentially gambling if you're trading on the daily price of Bitcoin. Though I'm pretty much buying and holding and or using the coins to actually purchase things, so I'm not terribly concerned about losing money on that. I bought a few coins at a much higher value than they are now, but I expect that I'll be able to
Gain
spend
that.
them or sell them for a much higher value than that at some point in the future.
Gotcha.
So long as I'm patient.
If I could just ask you a few questions to sort of wrap this up. Number one, I'd like to ask you, do you have any suggested reading material that people can go to if they have questions or if they really want to know about the math involved?
Yeah. There's a book, Mastering Bitcoin by Andreas Antonopoulos. O'Reilly's Mastering Bitcoin. If you want to know the technical details of how Bitcoin works, there's about a 300-page explanation, which I haven't finished reading myself, but I hear it's very good.
Is there a Bitcoin for Dummies book?
That's probably as close as you're gonna get. If you want a less technical explanation, you could watch any number of videos online. Andreas does a number of good ones himself, where he explains it to students at MIT and at Harvard.
You're going to want simpler than that, aren't you, Jay? Are you ready for MIT?
It's,
I might be able to watch it. How
pretty
long
easy
is
to-
this video?
there's long ones, there's short ones, and there's a number of other incredible people out there who explain how Bitcoin works and what the implications of it might be. Jeffrey Tucker is a good one. Tracy Meyer. I would just look up material by any of those people,
Okay.
and they
So-
can give you a pretty good idea.
Next question would be, for the casual listener, if they were interested in going out and buying one Bitcoin today, do they have to learn about the system, or can you just go to a website and convert your dollar to Bitcoin?
Well, you certainly can just go to a website and make an account and convert your dollar to Bitcoin. I feel like if you don't know what Bitcoin is, you don't have a use for it, that's similar to picking a penny stock and converting your dollar to that penny stock. People, I think, really should have an understanding of what it is they're investing their money in and what they're going to do with it. And also, if you're trusting a third party to hold your Bitcoin, you should have an understanding of what that third party is and why it is that you're trusting them with your money. There have been a number of early companies that had services for holding your Bitcoin, and some of them have collapsed, have been hacked, have had various issues, and part of the advantage of Bitcoin is that you don't have to trust another person or entity with it, and when you have a company that's holding something of large value for people, they're definitely a target for theft and fraud. They're also potentially a target to be shut down if they're not in compliance with regulatory institutions.
Is there an official Bitcoin site?
The Bitcoin.org site is sort of, I believe it's maintained by somebody at the Bitcoin Foundation.
Okay, well, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, because I just went to the Bitcoin site. What I think is bitcoin.org / and it's English.
Yeah.
And then it has a little button down here that says Get Started with Bitcoin. And I tried to click it, and what it did is it put the dots around. In fact, Jeffrey, can you go to that site?
I'm there.
Okay. When I clicked on it, I could actually type into the site.
What?
So I just put a little note that Jeffrey sucks on there. Luckily, it's not showing up on your computer over
No.
there.
That's very strange.
Yeah.
I've seen some. There's some browser plugins that let you deface websites, but I don't think it's supposed to do that by default. But the thing about it is that nobody is in charge of Bitcoin. It's a decentralized network, and anybody that wants to can put up a site. There is a Bitcoin Foundation that is kind of a collaborative effort between various business interests and some people involved in the development of Bitcoin. But they don't own Bitcoin and they don't speak for Bitcoin. It exists on its own outside of the foundation. So you can refer to the foundation if you choose that you want to like their resources or trust their resources, but you don't have to.
All right, so I'm gonna hold you to this. We're recording this in the year 2015. I'm gonna hold you to this. If I buy 10 Bitcoins, in the future, I could potentially sell them for a good deal more money.
Potentially.
Would you bet on it?
I have bet on it by investing my own money in Bitcoin. I don't need to make a bet with you.
Would you advise it?
I have generally advised people to become involved in Bitcoin and even to invest some money in Bitcoin on occasion. I wouldn't advise that anybody invest money that they can't afford to lose, first thing. Don't invest money that you need in order to pay for your basic necessities or anything like that. There are risks with all things, not only in the price of the investment itself, but in whatever measures you take to secure it or whoever you might trust that investment with. There's no such thing as a sure thing. But I am personally invested in Bitcoin, and I'm fairly confident in that investment.
Okay. Well, Eric, thank you.
Hold on. I've got one question
Okay.
before we go.
Is it about DiKoins?
Eric,
Yeah.
if I had a picture of your dick on my Bitcoin, how many Bitcoins would you pay me to not let that get out?
0?
Okay, how many Bitcoins would you pay me to distribute that to?
Well, no. At this point, it's up for auction, so I'm gonna raise the bet here to like 0.5 Bitcoins.
All right.
It's $140.
I'm just gonna
Nice.
walk around and be like, "See that? That's Eric's dick coin."
For everyone who can't see this, he's holding up 2 fingers with nothing in between them.
Oh, man, and on that note, I think we're going to wrap this up. Of course, we've been here with Eric Olson speaking about Bitcoin. Hopefully, everybody learned a lot about Bitcoin, and of course, if there's interested, he gave you a lot of options to figure out a little bit more about it. And if you're interested in DiKoin, go ahead and let us know on Open Mic Gripe. If you want to send us dick pics, we'll get those DiKoins started. I don't know what kind of box of worms I opened up here.
We might be the first podcast to invite people to send us dick pics.
I think, put it this way, if I'm going to start a currency on the Open Mic Gripe where you can trade dick, I'm going to collect your dicks,
But I want
put
there
them
to be
on coins, and we're going to trade them like pogs.
I want there to be a fee for this, though. You can send us your dick pics, but we also want to gripe with that. We want you to send us your gripes so we have something for the show.
True. Yeah, hey, like, mine hangs too much to the left.
It doesn't have to be about your dick,
Oh, dang.
but it can be.
Mine hangs just the right amount to the left. All right, so of course Jeffrey and I would like to thank you for joining us and listening to the Open Mic Gripe, the place where serious and silly complaints come to chat.
We will be bringing you new episodes every week, and we encourage everyone to participate by sending your gripes, grievances, and opinions to openmicgripe@gmail.com or tweet to us at openmicgripe.
Of course, don't forget to find us on Facebook. Just search for Open Mic Gripe. And of course, we hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you didn't, check us out next week when we will be discussing your gripe.